What's up, witches? It's Luna, the Zen Witch, here with a chart reading that I have been wrestling with over the last week or so about whether I want to put this up or not. But I think it illustrates some very, very good points. The first of which being the importance of context when you're looking at transits and trying to say what's going to happen. I've seen astrologers that do predictive things and they look at a chart and they look at the transits and they just take it as kind of out of the blue without really looking at the context of what's going on in the person's life. So the first thing that I'm drawn to here, we have the natal chart on the inner ring and we have the inauguration chart on the outer ring. And the inauguration events are set to kick off at 11:30, and that is what I initially set the chart for. But I have moved it forward to 11:52 a.m., which is the time that the moon becomes exact in conjunction with his natal moon. So transiting moon at 28 degrees 59 minutes, natal moon at 0 degrees of Taurus 59 minutes. So we are exactly 2 degrees off. From that point on, it applies to the conjunction. It is technically conjunct then, but then it becomes exact and then it'll start separating. So the moon in transit charts is a trigger because it's the fastest moving thing aside from the house cusps. So we've got a lunar return, and let's look at, and when I look at transits, I look at the planets that are being aspected in the natal chart by the transiting planets, what house those natal planets rule and what house they're posited in, and that describes, the nature of possibilities. So a triggering planet triggering the 8th house ruler. The 8th house shows your attitudes towards the taboos, sex, death, and taxes. So it can show your attitude towards death, the role that death has played in your life, your experience of it, that sort of thing. Whether you're curious about it. So triggering the 8th house is definitely triggering the topic of death. It also can be joint resources, how you get your needs met by other people, that kind of thing. So we have 8th house being set off. That definitely concerns the topic of death. That moon sits in his 5th house of children, showing him as the nurturing father that he is. What also sits in that 5th house is the Uranus-Mars conjunction. So that conjunction that becomes exact on Inauguration Day, pardon me, sitting in that 5th house of creativity, of play, of children. So it's certainly going to be an exciting day for Joe with the Mars-Uranus conjunction. It talks about excitement. It talks about upheaval, certainly more than a little bit of anxiety. But in the 5th house, I think that his family and children are certainly involved, that there's going to be a lot of anxiety around them. I'm not really sure about interpreting that Mars-Uranus conjunction. I mean, Uranus in the 5th house can talk about flashes of brilliance, great, exciting ideas as far as creativity goes, and Mars is the motivation to bring them into reality, especially since it sits in Taurus, which is the sign of physical reality and manifestation. So manifesting great creativity at the time. It's going to be an exciting day. That's the way I'm going to interpret that. The other thing that really jumps out at me right away is this Neptune conjuncting an angle. Planets conjuncting an angle come into high focus. Transiting Neptune is 1 degree, just less than 1 degree off of this 4th house cusp. It also rules that 4th house. So let's look at delineating the 4th house cusp. 4th house is your physical home, the house you live in. It is your emotional underpinnings, so the emotional climate of your early childhood. So in that way, it can talk about any kind of psychological issues, emotional issues like that. It is also a house of endings, and it rules the ending of your life and what that will look like. So if we just delineate it in those terms straight up, we have Neptune ruling the 4th house cusp says the manner of death will be something strange and mysterious, something weird, something out of the norm, abnormal. Neptune is, to quote my astrology teacher way back in my 20s. Nasty, finky, rotten. Neptune brings in all kinds of weirdness when it's transiting. So ruling the fourth house, just the manner of death just says something weird, something mysterious, something possibly hidden about it, something possibly neurotic about it, something maybe even involving an institution. So this could say something as simple as he dies in a hospital. That's an institution. Neptune rules institutions. The ruling planet in his natal chart sits in the 10th house, which says it will be in the public eye in some way. Well, he's a public figure, so when he passes away, whenever that is, it's likely to be in an institution, and it will certainly make news. It will be in the public eye. We've got Neptune sitting in Libra, which says there brings in a social element, possibly, with other people around. Maybe there's something that has to be negotiated. It could talk about being peaceful as well. And then we look at where that Venus, which rules the Neptune, sits in the 12th house in Scorpio, just conjunct the ascendant. And it says that, again, something hidden, something underhanded could be happening. It could also just say it will be a very private affair that ends up being reported about in the public eye. So, alarming as this seems, does this say Joe Biden's going to die tomorrow? No, it absolutely does not. And it would be incredibly irresponsible for an astrologer to look at this and say, I predict Joe Biden is going to die. What this says to me is that by going out on the Capitol steps in the public eye and holding a public inauguration as per tradition, this man is literally facing death in the context. So here's where context comes in. If we didn't know what was going on in this man's life, would we, that prediction could seem very far-fetched. But if we look at it and say this is 2 weeks after a violent insurrection and an attempt to overthrow our government by people, radicalized people from the opposite party, people who were bent on literally killing members of government, and that we have plenty of these people still out there, according to Joe Biden, in his context, from his point of view, because that, the chart, these transits are affecting him and his natal chart, he literally is facing death by walking out onto those Capitol steps. It is a supreme act of trust. So Neptune sitting on that fourth house cusp could also say that he is absolutely offering himself up. Neptune rules sacrifice. He is offering himself up and willing to sacrifice himself to take on this role as the leader of our nation. This particular event is literally putting him at physical risk of death. And that is what this chart is saying to me. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that. When I sat down and looked at this last week, I just sat there going, oh, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. And then, you come down off the fear of it and say, what is this actually showing us? In real terms, in not far-fetched terms, but also within the context of reality and things that are actually possible. I am reminded of when I first was studying astrology and I was looking at my family's charts, something that my teacher told us not to do while we were learning, and for a damn good reason. And I was looking at transits, and I was absolutely positive that my father was going to die. I saw it in his chart. I saw it in my mother's chart. I saw it in my sister's chart, in my chart. It was like, oh my God, here it comes. Should I tell everybody? Should I keep it to myself? I was just in turmoil. And the moment came and went with nothing. Not even so much as a threat. So, and what was going on in my dad's head, I don't know. It was not something I could really discuss with him at the time. So these are the pitfalls of predictive astrology, and this is what we have to watch out for. But if we look at transits, and that Neptune conjuncting the fourth house, he really is going into a time where emotionally it's going to be a big drain and a sacrifice. That Neptune can also say he's got deep, deep spirituality and his Catholic faith to see him through and give him this archetype of sacrifice for the greater good. You know, I mean, he is going to be sacrificing his time. Anybody that runs for office like that is doing a tremendous thing and sacrificing a lot of peace and privacy and everything else in order to serve. Some of them don't actually serve when they get there. They're expecting to be served. But, you know, that era is coming to a close. Anyway, let me know what you think of this. And if you're an astrologer, let me know your thoughts on these transits. I would love to hear them. Until I see you next time, please send a donation if you think this is worth it and click subscribe. Please click the like button so people will see my videos. Till next time, take care of yourselves. This is the Zen Witch. Blessed be.